Welcome to the Travel Man Podcast with your hosts Ben and
Pat.
Welcome, travellers. Thanks again for joining me. I'll be joined, obviously, by my brother Patrick. We're going to be talking about Yufuin, Fukuoka, and some really cool places that he went to in Japan, and maybe some other fun stuff. Just to let you know, there was a little bit of sound in the background, and that's because I'm a terrible podcaster, and I can't close doors, and you know what? Enjoy the podcast because it still sounds pretty good, and I had a lot of fun with Pat. All right, thanks, guys. Bye.
Probably started going to Japan in 2010. I would say I've probably been about 6 or 7 times over the last 6-7 years.
I've only been once.
So I've been a lot, but I always go snowboarding, always doing the same thing when I go.
Always,
Never been to Japan and not snowboarded.
Always missing the cherry blossom season.
Always, until next year.
What do you mean next year? Are you going next year?
Yeah, so next year, going with the wife, the ball and chain.
The old ball and chain?
The old ball and chain. And
yeah.
She doesn't want to go snowboarding, so we're gonna be hitting the cherry blossoms in spring. It's gonna be beautiful. We'll be flying into Tokyo and then heading down south where the cherry blossoms start. So maybe as far south as we can go, Nagasaki, Kyushu, something like that, and then work our way north towards Tokyo.
Is Kyushu that island, that last part of Japan?
Kyushu is one of the most southern islands. So the main islands, it's the most southern, I believe. So you got Honshu as the main island, you got Hokkaido in the north, you got Kyushu in the south, Nagasaki is in the south.
And you got Fukuoka on that same island, isn't it?
But that's way down. Fukuoka is a fair way away. That's a good couple of hours on a plane. Nagasaki you can get to via the train.
The Shinkansen?
Yeah, the Shinkansen.
So what would someone, if they haven't been to Japan before, what would they do? They'd fly into Tokyo or would they fly into Osaka?
Well, you can fly into both, but if you're an Aussie, so for the Aussies out there, you got pretty much direct flights from Australia to Tokyo and Osaka, the 2 major cities in Japan.
Yeah.
And then once you get there, you can pretty much go anywhere. You can catch connecting flights, connecting trains, connecting buses to go wherever you want in Japan. So it really depends what you want to do. But also, so you got Jetstar who fly in there, and also JAL who now fly direct to Tokyo from Melbourne.
From Melbourne.
And perhaps a few other cities, but I can't be sure.
Oh, yeah. And it's pretty affordable when you're travelling around Japan, or is it pretty expensive, like compared to the Aussie dollar?
Yeah, it's pretty affordable, but like anything, exchange rates fluctuate, but Japan's pretty cheap. A lot of people think Japan's very expensive, but it's really not. Japan's actually pretty cheap when you consider food.
Or cheap to eat,
Yeah, it's cheap to eat. Accommodation's usually pretty cheap if you know where to look. Obviously, if you stay in 5-star hotels, it's not cheap. But you can stay at the local ryokans and the guest houses. It's pretty cheap. Food, as I said, is cheap. You can get udon, you can get noodle soups, you can get ramen for like $10 or less. So it's really not that expensive. It's a silly myth that Japan is expensive. It's not.
No, fair enough.
I go back to Japan every year, and every year I'm just blown away by the food, the people.
The people are cool, aren't they?
The culture, just everything. It's just, it's hard to describe. Unless you go to Japan, you won't understand.
You've only been to Japan in the winter, haven't you?
Pretty much winter and spring.
Because I've been in the middle of summer and it's really hot.
Yeah.
Like really, really hot. I didn't expect Tokyo to be as hot as what it was. I remember walking around there and just, it was stifling. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. But I guess there's 32 million in Greater Tokyo, so or whatever that is. So that would probably be why it's so so hot. Now, I was going to say it would be too hard to cover all of Japan. We're not going to cover all of Japan today. I was thinking of I'll chat about Yufuin, which is in Kyushu, which you mentioned earlier. Kyushu. Well, Yufuin's a little Japanese town in the south of Japan. And I guess it's the other side of Fukuoka, which we've both been to. You've been to Fukuoka.
Been to Fukuoka.
Yeah. You liked it?
Yeah, it's cool. Cool place. They're well known for their yakitori in Fukuoka. That's their famous food, their yakitori. So you go out for dinner, you go to the little restaurants, and they got all the meats and vegetables lined up in skewers, and then you just pick the skewers you want, and they cook them on the char grill.
Oh, my God.
They put a bit of salt and chili on them, and you have that with Asahis or Sapporo, and you sit next to some Japanese businessman.
Make me hungry.
And you're just eating as many yakitori as you can, drinking beers and having chats with random Japanese people. It's good times.
That's one of the good things, though, about Japan, that you can just sit next to anyone, and if they speak English, which a lot of them do, you can have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, they do.
They're very friendly people.
Yeah, they love to chat, the Japanese, especially the businessmen. They always want to practice their English and drink beers and meet Westerners. You know, they love it. And
have you eaten any shark fin there?
No, I haven't eaten shark fin. I don't think I would either.
I ate shark fin accidentally. I ate it in Tokyo at a little hole in the wall.
Yeah, I'd probably stay away from shark fin and whale.
Well, I didn't know what I was getting. That I couldn't read Japanese, so I pretty much just ordered a few things from the menu, and I knew it was shark fin because it was that gelatinous taste. It was tasteless. I don't understand why they even bother eating shark fin.
Yeah. Oh.
I mean, what's the point, really? I wonder even if they eat the rest of the shark or if they just take the fin.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a topic for another time. I was thinking, with you can maybe chat about your adventures in the north of Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, for example, maybe you can tell us.
Sure. Or we could start with Tokyo. It depends what you want to talk about.
I was thinking over this podcast, I really wanted to focus more on where I've been. I've been to some other places as well, but Yufuin, which is a coastal, near the coast.
Is that an onsen town?
It's an onsen town, yeah. So I want to talk about that, and I also want to talk about Fukuoka, but together we can talk about Fukuoka, and then you, if you like, you can talk about maybe some of the things that you did in the far north of Japan, because somewhere that not a lot of tourists go to.
Well, a lot of people don't realise that Japan actually has bears.
What?
So
really?
Yeah, so there's bears in Japan.
Oh, okay.
But you won't see them typically unless you go up into the mountains or the forests. But yeah, it's
fuzzy little bears? Like really cute little bears? Or are you talking scary bears?
I think they're like the black bears. So not the huge brown bears that you get in North America.
Oh, you mean like the 3 metre tall black bears?
Or
I'm 2 metre tall?
I'm not sure, but they're not. They're still dangerous. You wouldn't want to get caught next to one of these bears, but there's a lot of them in Japan. So a lot of people don't realise that. But
I wouldn't have realised that there was black bears in Japan.
But I've been to, because I go to Japan mainly to snowboard. So Japan has lots of different ski areas. I think it's got more ski areas than anywhere in the world.
You go to Japan nearly every year.
Almost every year I've been to all the major ski towns. So Hokkaido up north.
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of their ski resorts. Niseko is very famous.
Yeah.
In the north, in Hokkaido, which is the top island. And then on Honshu, on the main island, the most famous areas there is around Nagano, where they had the Winter Olympics.
Yep.
So
that's this year, isn't it? The Winter Olympics.
In Russia, I think.
Russia.
Is that right? Or no, maybe somewhere else. No, South Korea. Perhaps.
Russia's holding the
Summer Olympics.
Summer Olympics.
Yeah.
But so it's in Korea.
I think so. Yeah, Korea and Japan.
Oh, back in Japan.
I think combined.
Oh, because they did that last time combined.
They're doing
Didn't they?
The Winter Olympics. I'm not sure.
I thought they did Winter Olympics last time.
Yeah.
They tend to always get the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, not sure.
Yeah,
not
but
sure.
I've never snowboarded ever. I've done a bit of cross-country skiing. What are the slopes like in Japan? Are they world-class?
Well, I would say it's world-class. It's
like compared to
world-class powder. So you go to Japan to ride powder. And powder is
what's the
deep,
difference?
fluffy snow.
Oh, yeah.
So in Australia, in New Zealand, most of Europe, the US, you most of the time you're snowboarding, skiing on piste, on...
What's piste?
Piste just means the main run. So,
like a yellow, blue, black run.
Yeah, whatever. But in Japan, they get so much snow, it pukes down sometimes as much as 70 centimetres overnight.
70 centimetres.
That you're literally riding in just knee-deep, waist-deep powder. So it's like floating on a cloud. And usually you're going backcountry, you're going through the trees, off-piste, and that's why people go to
Sounds
Japan.
dangerous going through the trees.
Can be. It's dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, it's not so dangerous at all.
Didn't you go into a tree?
Yeah,
once?
I did go into a tree once.
And what did you do? You broke your ribs?
Oh, broke my ribs, hurt my knee, did my ankle. But that was a while ago. That was back in the US.
That was in California, wasn't it?
In California, yeah. On the border of Nevada and California in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
For all you Americans out there, Lake Tahoe. Good
Tahoe. Anyway, so where did you? I mean, like, do the resorts cater for tourists? Obviously,
yeah.
Like
there are literally hundreds, thousands of resorts. Some
like ski resorts that are part of a ski, like I don't know,
like Hakuba Niseko is pretty much aimed at Western markets, mainly Australians, New Zealanders.
Well, not to Japanese.
Well, no, I mean there are Japanese resorts, but usually the Japanese go to the smaller places where it's quiet and it's just Japanese. Less touristy. They don't want to go where, they have to line up basically because they don't need to do that in Japan. Because there's so many ski resorts, and if you've got a car and you're a local, you can just drive to some sweet resort that's going to have no one there because the Westerners can't get there because they don't have cars. There's no public transport there.
Oh.
So if you're a local Japanese, you go with your mates.
Yeah.
You're the only one on the mountain, and it could be a metre of fresh snow, and you've just got fresh tracks all day long.
For instance, tell the listeners, how would they get from Tokyo to, say, one of the ski resorts?
Yeah, so getting from Tokyo to anywhere is pretty easy because they got the Shinkansen.
Even in the snow? They run in the snow?
Yeah, all year round.
Obviously, the tracks get cleared.
They have the snow clearing trains. So they have a big that
would be cool.
funnel thing on the front that just clears the track. So there could be 30 centimetres of snow on the track, but those trains will come through with this big beak.
Yep.
And just smash through the
snow. At about 380 km an hour?
Yeah, so quite... No. In the littler towns, they have the 2-carriage trains on the littler lines.
Oh, like the diesel trains?
I'm not sure.
I actually took a diesel train from Fukuoka to Yufuin, and it was a red train.
Yeah.
A red diesel
carriages?
Train. One.
Yeah, so that's normal. So a lot of these littler towns, littler remote areas will just have 1 or 2 carriages, and they'll just go back and forth between,
like a major city.
Yeah, between, maybe an hour. So they just go back and forth, and it's just a little train. It's pretty cool.
I'm thinking the Shinkansens will probably take over all those routes one day. It's just, it's kind of like...
The Shinkansen are mainly for the major routes, like Tokyo to Osaka, Tokyo to Hokkaido, Tokyo to Sendai to Osaka to,
Hiroshima,
to Nagasaki, Hiroshima, that sort of stuff. But once you get into the little regional areas, it's littler trains.
And they're usually, either diesels or electric trains or whatever. Or push-powered, like they use their feet, they cut a hole in the floor.
Yeah,
and not that type?
Not that type travel man, Ben.
Mongolian trains?
No.
Well, I would like to talk about Yufuin, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's a town located in I think it's Oita.
Where is Yufuin?
Oita district? Well, it's in Kyushu.
Oita.
It's in the far right-hand, far eastern side of Kyushu Island.
Kyushu.
Up the top. Kyushu. Oh, why do I say Kyushu?
Because you're trying to pronounce it like an Aussie.
Yeah, that's true. I'm an Aussie. Kyushu. And it's about 10 k's from the coast. It's really famous for being a hot spring resort, whereas I think a lot of the towns in that western part of Kyushu are onsen resorts or hot spring resorts. Yufuin actually has a very small population of only about 12,000 people, so it's a small town.
Gee, that is small.
And I feel whenever I'm there, when I was there once, that I didn't feel that hustle and bustle of the big city like at Tokyo. It actually was really relaxing.
Because you're in a little town.
Yeah, but this beautiful, it was so nice. When you arrive, you exit the train station, and you're greeted like with this vista of a main street. It's lined with all these various shops. There's museums, there's cafes, like lots of cafes. There's little boutiques.
So is it touristy then?
Yeah, it's really touristy.
So there's a lot of local tourists or international?
No, international. I didn't see many local tourists. It's quite well known. But you can do touristy things, but they're famous for the onsen. So you want to see if you can like book a hotel or a ryokan with an onsen attached to it.
Yeah, most would have an onsen attached though.
People that don't know anything about Japanese or Japan probably don't know what an onsen is. Yeah. Do you want to tell them?
An onsen is a hot spring or a hot bath.
Yeah.
So one thing a lot of Westerners don't like is the fact that they have to go nude in the onsen.
Oh,
it can be a bit confronting.
That's a prerequisite
for a lot of people.
And a piece of towel.
But that is very normal.
You need a tissue
you cannot... A lot of these onsen will have a sign at the door for the Westerners that you've got to take your underwear off. You can't go in with board shorts or undies. Not only do you look like an idiot, but you're breaking the rules. So whilst it's really awkward to begin with, you get used to it pretty quickly. After 1 or 2 times in the onsen, you'll soon become addicted.
Isn't female and male separated?
Yeah, usually they're separated. Having said that, in the more regional areas which aren't touristy, they have combined onsen.
Well, the one we went to, there was 3 different types of pools. They were all landscaped differently. They were all...
different temperatures?
Yeah, kind of different temperatures and different sizes. They were probably big enough to fit 3 or 4 people in them. But they were... You could go in with your wife or your girlfriend or your best mate. And also, like, something that I've read up about onsens in Japan is that they don't allow people with tattoos, but now they're opening up onsens for people with tattoos.
Yeah, it depends which... Like, if you're in the ski areas in Niseko or Hakuba, they're not too fussed because all the Westerners have tattoos. Well, not all, but a large chunk of the Aussies and the Kiwis and the Americans that go there do have tattoos, so they don't stop them from going in. But if you go into some regional area, into some little town, they could think you're in Yakuza or something, and then you won't be allowed in.
So that's why. It's got nothing to do with health and safety.
Yeah. They don't want to be seen to supporting the Yakuza, so they're not allowed in the onsen.
What if you have like a tramp stamp or something? That's not Yakuza.
Nah, but...
That's like Brisbane.
You'd probably still be okay if you're in any of the major areas. Like, it's not a big deal. But it's more of a traditional thing.
Remember our brother's ex-wife? She had a tramp stamp?
Yeah, she did.
It wasn't nice.
Nah, horrible. They're probably the worst things, those
They're the worst tramp stamps in the world.
Not a good look.
Talking about tramp stamps, so do you know what a ryokan is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, ryokan is a Japanese inn. It's known for upholding the same traditions that they've had since the 8th century AD. So, I mean...
Yeah, they're old.
Yeah. So, back in the day, people, they were located on the sides of roads, and people would go in there as a place to unwind or relax. So, travellers. And they'd offer accommodation. They'd also have tatami matted rooms. They're those rooms that have the mats on the floor and on the walls and the sliding doors. It's what you would see in many traditional Japanese films and so forth. Very interesting stuff. And they would have communal onsens. Communal. That means communal?
Communal.
I can't even say the word today.
Are you drunk, Ben?
No, I've had 3 or 4. But if you're lucky enough, you can get the chance to even wear a yukata.
Yukata gown.
Do you know what that is?
Yeah, they're like the traditional gowns.
Yeah, I wore
it's
one.
It's like a bathrobe.
Yeah, I wore one with Mandy and Lincoln. And you know Lincoln.
Yeah, of course.
He was so proud to wear it. So proud.
You would have needed extra large.
Well, I'm not going to go there. All right, because I can't talk too much. But yes, But anyway, let's move on from there. We stayed in an old wooden ryokan lodge. Wow. It was amazing. It looked like a Swedish ski lodge.
That's one thing I haven't done. Stayed in an old-fashioned ryokan.
You have to. But the breakfast was terrible.
Well, have I? Oh, maybe I have. Maybe I have.
I thought all the ski resorts there would be old wooden.
Yeah, but usually they've upgraded to beds in most cases.
Really?
So you're not actually sleeping on the floor. However, I have slept on the floor. Back the very first year I went to Japan, I slept on a tatami mat in a tiny little room in Tokyo.
Yeah,
and it felt like I was in someone's closet.
Why'd you do that?
Oh, it was cheap, I think.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
Cheap. It was a long time ago. That was back in 2009 or 10 or something. Can't remember.
I'll tell you a funny story actually about one of the onsens I went in. You know, you enter an onsen, they've got the shower set up.
Yeah.
Then they've got like a tub set up, and then you've got the little tub, like it's
a little thing that you
it's
use
not
to
that
wash
big.
yourself.
Yeah. So you got that, and then you've got the onsen, right?
Yeah.
I was there with Lincoln.
Yeah.
I had a shower, right? And I hopped into the tub, I put my whole body in there.
In the little tub.
Yeah. And Lincoln said, "What are you doing?" Like, that's not the onsen. You're supposed to just use the bucket that's there to wash yourself down. But I actually went straight in it.
Oh, my God.
I didn't know what it was.
The tiny little tub. The little plastic bar.
Yeah, it was like a cat in a box.
Oh, my
You know
God.
the cat in the box pictures and videos on the internet?
The Japanese guys would have been laughing at you.
Well, there was no Japanese guys because it was a private one. Lincoln was laughing at me. But going back to Yufuin, it's a really beautiful town. It's a farming town, which has a really nice river running through it. You can get there from Fukuoka. It's about a 2-hour train ride on that diesel train I was talking about.
I think I looked at going there when I was in Fukuoka, but I couldn't. It just didn't work out. It was a bit too far from Fukuoka to do it in a day trip. Impossible, so I didn't end up going.
But it's so beautiful. The countryside's got rice paddy fields everywhere, little walking tracks. It's got this Twin Peak mountain backdrop, and the mountain's called Mount Yufu, like Mount Yufuin. But it's so serene. I have photos from the trip. Maybe I'll post them on the website.
Post a few pictures so that we can check it out.
I might do that. But its closest town is Beppu, which is 10 k's away on the coast. But I was not impressed with Beppu at all. And that's also got thermal activities.
Hot springs.
It's got hot springs, But it's also got a casino there, and I think people go there. I don't know why they would choose to go to Beppu.
But I think gambling is illegal in Japan. So it wouldn't have been a casino. It would have been the...
It was...
what do you call it? They got a different name for it.
Oh, what do they call it? Something else?
Yeah, it's something else, but it's not actually gambling. You play around with these little balls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It didn't feel Japanese because we did a day trip there, but it has one of the tackiest thermal spring sparks I've ever been to. It's called the Hells of Beppu. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Hells of Beppu.
No.
But it's connected, it says. It's got all these man-made pools, which are hot springs. But it looks like that thermal areas you'd see in Yosemite Park. You know, the bubbling thermal coloured pools and stuff.
Ah.
And they're that bluish colour.
But it wasn't good.
It wasn't good because it was all man-made. and it was all very over the top. It was too touristy for me.
Big tourist town.
And you could tell that they had pumped the water from the ground into these pools. So it wasn't that cool. And there was also this area where they had alligators in these little pens set up, concreted in. It was very un-Japanese because you could tell these alligators were breathing in all this smoke. I was breathing it in, choked me right up. So yeah, I don't know how that was any good for the alligators and any other animals that they had there too.
So what else did you do in
Yufuin?
Beppu? Was that pretty much it?
No,
So
I did
Beppu,
nothing.
Yufuin,
I just wanted to go to
hot
the
springs.
So the Beppu's,
Did you have some food there?
Yeah, but it wasn't that good.
What about Yufuin? Did you have some noodles?
It was good. No, it was good. Like the food we had was like ramen and stuff like that, just like traditional stuff.
Do you like the ramen?
Yeah, I like ramen. There's actually a good ramen place in Northcote. Have you been?
Northcote.
I think I told you about it once. I don't know. I'd have to tell you. I'd have to get the name from Mandy again. But I prefer Yufuin. It's a much prettier town. Beppu seems like it's a little bit of a city, a little bit too touristy, whereas Yufuin's more like that little village that you can get away. It's also really cool because it's got bridges that link the city. It's got many, many little bridges, and I think of it as like a little mini Venice. So you need to always cross a bridge to get wherever you go.
Sounds nice.
The streets are really small and narrow, cobbled in parts. Everyday vendors sell really, really well-made knickknacks. So if you ever want to get really good souvenirs, you'd go to Yufuin.
Yeah, it sounds like Kanazawa, which is on the west coast of Japan, near sort of Toyama.
Is that a ski resort place?
Nah, it's not.
Really?
It's just it's probably one of the top tourist attractions in Japan for the local Japanese.
Not for internationals.
So not for Westerners. Westerners don't really know about it, don't really go there. It's not in brochures, but we can perhaps talk about that another time.
Yeah,
Another
sure.
podcast. But tell us about Fukuoka. What's going on there?
Isn't it called Fukuoka?
Not sure.
Yeah,
Depends how
apparently.
you pronounce it. Fukuoka.
I was
Fukuoka.
gonna say one last thing before we move on to Fukuoka. One thing that was, I think it's iconic, or it may be only in Yufuin, is that they've got fireflies. So at night, you can look over the bridge and you see all these bright little lights, and they're fireflies, and they're everywhere.
At night only?
At night. So if you can imagine...
Where?
Just near the bridge. So you're
Like
walking
in the
over the
water
bridge
or flying
near the water,
around?
near the water.
Ah.
And they're flying above the water and they glow. It's really beautiful. So that's a good thing to do.
There, I think, Yufuin.
Definitely go to Yufuin. It's so cool. But
I'll go there with the ball and chain next year.
go there with the chain and ball. And you asking me about food earlier. Fukuoka's probably got some of the best Japanese food I've ever eaten.
Fukuoka is phenomenal food. We'll just call it Fukuoka.
Let's call it
We're both
Fukuoka.
saying the same thing.
All right, Fukuoka.
And let all those Japanese listeners out there write back to us, tell us how we're supposed to pronounce
Now,
it.
if you want to write hate mail to me, it's travelmanpodcast@gmail.com, and Patrick's is I'm not going to tell you.com.
Yeah, that's it.
Anyway, so send me all that hate mail. Yeah, you know what I read? That they do chicken sashimi somewhere near there.
Yes, chicken sashimi. They do that in Tokyo as well, but I wouldn't touch it.
Why not?
Oh, just the idea of eating raw chicken. Not a good idea in my opinion.
But obviously, like, it's a special type of chicken. It's not like your Steggles chicken. Like,
Still,
you know what I mean?
Still, nah, I wouldn't do it. I've eaten raw horse in Japan.
What's that
I
like?
love that.
That would be tasty.
That's beautiful. It's like raw beef.
Yeah.
Really dark meat, beautiful with a bit of garlic and soy. Delicious.
Absolutely
You can find that
raw.
everywhere. Yeah,
Really?
just raw, like you'd have your raw beef.
Ah.
You know, like the French do it.
Oh, yeah.
Steak tartare and yeah, it's beautiful.
Have you tried fugu?
No, I haven't had fugu.
Fugu would be pretty...
Not sure if I'd try that either. It just seems like you're dicing with death a little bit.
Well, that's the idea, though. That's the whole fun of it. The Japs love it because it's like they're dicing with death.
Yeah, but I want to go to Japan a few more times.
Fair enough. Well, you know, Fukuoka is only...
We're butchering this.
Oh my god! Don't make me laugh. Now, Fukuoka's probably about 5-6 hours, I guess, train ride from Tokyo. Probably about 3 hours train ride from Osaka, and really, if you're taking the train, the only other way is the plane.
Yeah, you can probably fly. I always like to take Shinkansen in Japan, though.
Look, it makes sense.
I just love Shinkansen.
Me too. I mean, Shinkansen is my favourite type of travel in Japan.
And you can get a rail pass.
What's a rail pass generally cost?
Oh, those rail passes are awesome, and it's so much cheaper. If you're going to travel around Japan, you definitely got to get a rail pass.
But there's 7 to 14 days, aren't they? Or
7
like
up to 21 days.
Up to 21
I just had a look
days.
before. The 21 days, $1,500. 7 days is only $320. When you consider that Shinkansen from Tokyo to Fukuoka alone might cost $150, it's paying itself off straight away just from Tokyo to Fukuoka and back to Tokyo. And then you could travel on Shinkansen all day, every day for 7 days, which I've done in the past. I did a 7-day. I travel all the way down to Nagasaki, back to Fukuoka, back to Osaka, back to Tokyo.
You doing the whole loop?
I did it all in 7 days. I probably would have spent $1,000 on Shinkansen, but instead I only spent $300.
But does it make sense to actually then stay in Japan longer than, say, 7 days, so you can, get that longer Shinkansen pass? Because it would be cheaper to get it for a longer amount of time than a shorter amount of time?
No, it's actually more expensive the longer you go.
Really?
Yeah.
What happened to the longer?
So the 7 days, $320. This is Aussie dollars.
So
the 14-day is $844. So it's more than double. Even though it's double the amount of days, it's more than double the price.
That is more than double.
And then the 21-day, which is only another week, is almost double again from the 14-day price.
So like $1,500 or something.
$1,500.
That's pretty...
But that still might work out to be cheap. If in 21 days you're going all around Japan, that might actually work out to be cheap.
Fair enough, mate. Now, did you know that Greater Fukuoka has 2.5 million people in the last census that they did?
Yeah, it's a big city. It's pretty cool.
I thought it would be a bit bigger than that. I remember
that might
being
be
quite
just
busy.
The CBD. The Greater...
But that's stats from 2005, so...
Oh, that's a long time ago.
12 years later, I'm sure it's probably double.
But the Greater Metropolitan Area...
Oh, it's probably even bigger.
For Fukuoka, I'm sure would be bigger than 2 million. It's a big city.
I'm just checking out... Actually, the metro area is 5.5 million population, so... And that's current. That's now. So...
But what can you do in Fukuoka again? I can't remember.
There was this really cool Japanese garden that I went to.
It's near the coast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right near the coast.
Right.
They've got a big lake that you can walk around.
That's right. They've got some awesome gardens.
Yeah, really, really awesome gardens. Obviously, great food. They've got this not a temple, like a castle, and on top of the castle is like sporting fields. Like there's a baseball field, and then there's ruins everywhere. Did you know about that?
I can't remember. When I was in Fukuoka, I think I was only there for a couple of days. All I remember is eating a lot of the yakitori.
Getting really drunk?
Yeah, getting a little bit drunk. I went out one night, had a few drinks, went to one of the bar areas, which was pretty cool. Pretty sure I went to... I think it is the...
You would have gone to Fukuoka Castle.
Ohori Park. I'm pretty sure
Ohori
I went
Park,
there.
yeah. Well, that's... Ohori Park has the Japanese garden near it. It's an amazing little garden. Let me see if I can...
And the other thing I tried to do is I tried to find the fish market, because they're right on the coast. I tried to go to that fish market.
Yeah.
But when I went, it was sort of just closing up. So, I didn't get too much bang for my buck.
Yeah, well, that's true. You wouldn't have. But the Japanese garden's really beautiful because it's got azaleas everywhere. It's really well planted. And when we went, it was kind of between spring and summer. I think it was probably going into summer. And so all the flowers were out from spring and none of them have died back yet. And you would have little cobblestones stepping through water. It was really, really pretty. And that's the Japanese garden that's located in what's it called? The lake.
Ohari, was it?
Ohari Lake. So that was really cool. That's one of the cool things to do. But you must go and see the castle. The castle's really famous, and it's all in that one area. So you got Ohori Park, you got Meizuru Park, you've got the Fukuoka Kenkogoku Shrine, which is near.
Right. There's a few shrines. Everywhere you go in Japan, you're going to find shrines and temples and things, which is always cool to go to.
Yeah, but that's near the Japanese garden. But the Fukuoka Castle is really, really interesting. It's up on the top of a hill. And there's ruins, and then there's also the castle to look at.
Oh, maybe I did do that.
Did you?
Yes, I did do that, actually.
Yeah. Look what the cat's doing.
So is this Travel Man Cat?
This is the Travel Man Cat that
Travel Man Miu.
Yeah, my cat...
Your cat's got a Japanese name.
My cat's got a Japanese name. Her name's Miu, and it means blue moon in Japanese, or something like that. But she loves cables. Now, she's looking at all the cables I've got here because I've got this place set up like a studio. Well, it is a studio. But she likes biting on the cables, so I'm trying to get her to stop biting on cables, and Uncle Patrick's trying to get her away from all the cables, I think. But Fukuoka Castle is something you have to do. So if you're in Fukuoka... So you got to do the Japanese garden. You got to walk right around Ohori Park, Ohoru Park. You've got to take the bridge that takes you into that centre part of the park. You've obviously got to eat the really good food.
That's right. When I went to Ohori Park, I remember
there
was lots of kids, the school kids, running around the park in big groups. Very disciplined.
Yeah, and did you realise that the park... it was the road in the park had 2 lanes.
Yes, yeah, it's all laned off.
It's all segregated in a sense, like
whether you're on a bike or whether you're running or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. But
and Hakata is the main station. So if you're catching the Shinkansen from Tokyo, you're looking for the Shinkansen that stops at Hakata Station. But
Hakata.
Yeah, Hakata is the main station in central
Not
Fukuoka.
Not Yufuin.
No. The main Shinkansen line stops at Hakata. And just across the road from Hakata is the hotel I stayed at, which is pretty cool, and I do recommend it. The Nishitetsu Hotel Sea Room, Hakata. And that is awesome. It's like a 5-star hotel, 4 or 5-star, really nice rooms, fantastic service, and it's got an onsen for guests, which is pretty normal in a lot of the Japanese 5-star, 4-star hotels, is they usually have an onsen for guests.
Ah, okay. Yeah, it looks like that's quite a good location. I'm looking at a map of Hakata now. I think it's
downtown. That's like the central area.
Yeah, we were in, I think Nakatsu or somewhere like that. Nakatsu. It's like kind of to the west of. It's near Tenjin Central Park.
Ah, okay.
And I'm pretty sure that's where we were. But like Fukuoka is cool.
Very cool. So when I caught the Shinkansen, it was all the way from Tokyo, all the way to Hiroshima, through Fukuoka, and down to Nagasaki. So Man, that was a long trip. And then all the way back as well. And I think I did that in 7 days.
That's pretty
or
impressive.
Less. Probably 5 days, actually. It's on a tight schedule.
I'm just checking. Still recording. That's good.
Yeah.
I thought you were in trouble then. That's all right.
Jeez, we've been going on too long, have we?
No.
So what else did you want to talk about?
Well,
so we've talked about Yufuin. We talked about
I wanted to talk.
Fukuoka.
Well, the podcast is going to be titled Yufuin, Fukuoka, and a Japanophiles Adventures. I call you a Japanophile only because you've been there so often.
It's pretty
So,
cool.
I mean, is there anything that you would recommend for someone that's never been to Japan before that they should do? Maybe these 5 things. What are 5 things in Japan that someone should do?
Well,
Like, obviously go to Tokyo.
you got to go to Tokyo. You got to spend, at least 3 or 4 days in Tokyo.
Is there a part in Tokyo that's better than the others?
Well, Shinjuku.
That's where the crazy
is
dresses
the
are?
main area. There's lots of main areas in Tokyo, so
It's huge.
it's hard to try and do everything in Tokyo. Would take you months, and you probably still wouldn't get everywhere in Tokyo. So you just have to focus on the key areas. But
Yeah.
obviously Shinjuku, Shibuya. Those are a couple of the main areas. If you're going in winter, you got to go to a ski resort. You got to go snowboarding or skiing. Experience Japanese powder because that's what it's all about. Phenomenal.
Yeah. If you went to Japan in the winter and you actually didn't snowboard or ski, what's the point?
Yeah, well, it's not that great. I mean, Japan is pretty cold in winter. There's no leaves on any of the trees, so everything's a bit gloomy, a bit bleak and grey because it's not, obviously if there's no greenery on the trees, it's a bit dull. But having said that, there's a lot of cool things you can do in Japan regardless.
What about the snow monkeys?
Yeah, the snow monkeys are cool. You can do that in Hakuba. I can't recall what the place is called. But there's a place just near Nagano.
What, and they swim with you?
No, they got a separate area because they take shits in the water. They
this
do
is a
all
PG
sorts of
rated
stuff.
podcast, Patrick.
You wouldn't want to be swimming in there with them, trust me.
So they do their business.
That's right. So there's a private onsen for
the
humans,
monkeys.
and there's a private onsen for the monkeys and their little babies.
That's ridiculous.
And everything. Well, it makes sense. If you went there, you'd understand. You wouldn't want to be swimming in there with them.
With monkeys?
Yeah.
Well, I guess, their fur would go in the water too.
But the other thing I would recommend doing is if you go to Japan, you got to go to Nagasaki or Hiroshima.
Yep.
Just so that you can understand the evil of nuclear and atomic bombs. Only once you go there do you understand how important it is that we get rid of nuclear weapons.
Oh, for sure.
Because the destruction of those atomic bombs after World War II is just devastating. So I've been to both Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and it's a pretty sad place.
Yeah.
But, you got to go there if you go to Japan.
Have they prettied it up? Is there landscaping
it's fully
done there?
built now.
It's fully built.
In fact, you wouldn't even know an atomic bomb ever landed there.
What about the radiation sickness and all that stuff?
Well, that's all past as well, mostly. They must have dug up the soil and, done heaps of restoration works. But there's still, in Hiroshima, there's still a building that was bombed on that day that's half destroyed.
And they're keeping that?
They've kept that, so you can see the building.
Oh, that's good.
Half destroyed, and always a lot of tourists around there, right next to a little river. But yeah, you got to go to Hiroshima and Nagasaki if you go to Japan. Very important.
I've never been.
Yeah,
it's one place on my bucket list. I definitely want to go to Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah. Nagasaki's actually pretty cool because it's surrounded by mountains and it's very hilly, and you got a little bay there. It's a pretty cool little town.
Yeah.
Lots of good food.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
One other place I actually want to go to Japan, but you can't take a Shinkansen I don't think you can take a boat. You can only fly there, and it's the islands off Japan in the southern.
Okinawa.
I think Okinawa in the China Sea.
You can only fly there.
Yeah, but it looks amazing.
Yeah, that's
It's
like fully
tropical. Yeah, fully tropical islands in Japan.
You wouldn't know you're in Japan.
Like if you're like, pause the podcast now, come back in a second, but have a look at pictures of Okinawa.
Yeah,
It's amazing. The
Sort of
beaches
like
there,
Hawaii.
unbelievable.
Almost.
Talking about Hawaii, there's a lot of Japs there too.
Oh, the Japanese love Hawaii, from what I understand.
Probably because of what happened at Pearl Harbor. Maybe they
maybe
feel a bit guilty.
Attraction. Who
feel
knows?
a bit guilty, you know.
Who knows?
And I was going to say, actually, is it safe to fly to Japan at the moment, considering what North Korea's up to? You know, with all their missile testing and stuff.
I think it's fine. I wouldn't be too worried about North Korea. It's all more chest beating than anything.
So there's no actual travel warnings to Japan?
Nah. I'd be more worried about going to America than going to Japan.
I've just been to America.
After what just happened in Las Vegas.
Oh, well, tell me about it, yeah. Like, America's unstable with their gun laws, but that's
a whole nother podcast.
Whole nother podcast, which I'd never probably do.
No.
But, this is great, Pat. Have you got anything else to say?
No, that's it. All I can say is book that trip to Japan. You won't be disappointed.
Yeah.
But just, I'll warn you, once you go once, you'll be going every year after that.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
Is there a term for that? Is it like a disease?
Yeah, I guess you're just addicted.
Addicted to Japan.
That's it.
Well, that's been really cool, and I've really liked your insight today.
No worries.
We've gone about 47 minutes.
Jeez, and we've only scratched the surface.
We've only scratched the surface. Now, I'll give you one last opportunity. Is there anywhere else that you would recommend in Japan? Because I remember
Kanazawa.
You did say Tokyo.
I love Kanazawa. You got to go to Kanazawa.
Kanazawa, and where's that? Just quickly.
Kanazawa's on the east coast. There's a brand new Shinkansen line that's only opened in the last couple of years that goes direct Tokyo to Kanazawa. Is that an awesome place.
What side of Japan is that, and what
East
part?
Coast.
Is that on that main?
Sorry, not East Coast. West Coast of Japan.
Yep.
I think it goes through Nagano, the Shinkansen line.
Kanazawa. Do they make pottery there? Are they famous for pottery?
Agriculture, fisheries. It's a food bowl sort of area of Japan. So very green pastures, because they got all the big mountains of, all the big mountains of Japan just next to them. All the water flows off, so I think they've got really good pastures. They've got the ocean right there. So it's just, it's a big and a historic town for Japan as well. So you got the samurais, the ninjas.
Is that where they started?
I don't know if it's where they started, but you can go and view, the houses where the ninjas and the samurais lived and all this sort of stuff. It's pretty cool. They've got rivers running through the city. It sort of feels like you're in Venice in parts.
Oh, really? Just like Yufuin in a way.
It's very cool.
No, that sounds awesome. And can you get there from Tokyo easily?
Shinkansen.
And that's like an hour away or something?
Probably, I would say 2 hours, but I'm guessing 2 to 3 hours.
2 to 3 hours.
From Tokyo. And I would recommend probably staying, you could stay 5 days there. There's one of the most famous markets in Japan is in
So could you do
in Kanazawa.
Could you do 5 nights in Tokyo?
Yeah.
And then say 5 nights in Kanazawa and maybe go down to Kyoto or Osaka?
Connected. You could do it all, yeah.
Have you done Kyoto?
Connected. Yeah, I've been to Kyoto
a long
time ago.
Osaka?
Osaka,
maybe we'll do a second podcast.
I don't know much about Osaka.
Okay, well maybe we'll do another one and we can talk about more like Tokyo.
Yeah, we can talk about
some of the bigger cities.
I really like Hiroshima, Nagasaki.
Well, we can leave that for another one anyway.
Sapporo in the north.
There's so much to see and do and hear about. But on this one, we've talked briefly on Fukuoka. We've talked about Yufuin, which is so cool. If you really, Pat, if you're going to Japan next year, get to Yufuin.
I think we'll do that, definitely.
But remember, you're going to have to take quite a long Shinkansen ride to Fukuoka and then take that 2 hour diesel train ride.
That's a good idea. We'll do that for sure.
So do that. Also, because Halloween's coming up, I just wanted to talk about something that's a bit creepy that happens in Japan. Have you heard of that forest where the Japanese guys go to hang themselves?
Yeah, in Mount Fuji.
Near Mount Fuji.
At the base of Mount
It's called,
Fuji.
is it the Forest of the Dead or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
It's got a name, but it's very creepy. People go there to commit suicide.
Yeah.
It's quite sad, actually, as well.
Creepy.
The Japanese guys overwork themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, but very creepy documentary.
But those Japanese guys overwork themselves. That's why. They're a hard-working race, and that's why they have a huge drink when they finish work, and they eat a lot. But then they probably go back to work because that's where they live and sleep. But anyway, Pat, thanks a lot for joining me on this podcast. I'm sure everyone's really enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you again on the next podcast, or maybe another one in the future about Japan, because you're my Japanese local expert.
Sounds good, Travel Man.
Thanks, Pat. Cheers. And just remember, everyone, you can find me at Travelman Podcast at email. Well, that's at email. Travelmanpodcast@gmail.com is my email.
Jeez, get it right, Ben.
Sounds like I'm doing a rhyme there. I've got a Facebook site, which Patrick's gone to. It's Travelman Podcast.
Travelman Podcast. Facebook.
Instagram, Travelman Podcast. I've got a website that I always say is notoriously hard to find because it's one of those Wix websites where actually I'll be probably creating a new website soon anyway. And you can find me on SoundCloud, so just SoundCloud, Travelman Podcast, and I'm obviously on iTunes as well, which is Travelman Podcast. So that's it from me today and from Pat. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, and I'll speak to you later. Ciao.